Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our last session for Digital Learning Day. There was so much that we unpacked during this event. I do want to say thank you for everyone that attended all of the sessions and those that could attend a few as well. We will have the recordings available and we will have links to all the slides that were shared in from our wonderful presenters today. That will also be available. Well, there was a few that had additional resources as well. We will be including those as well. Everything you will get through an email, and it's also posted on the website. Um, in our last session, digital literacy and family learning, mini projects that build skills and create connections. Our presenter is Cassandra Kramer. Did I say it right, the last name? Or
Yep, Kramer. Yep.
Kramer, okay. Cassandra Kramer is a lead ESO instructor for the English Empowerment Center in Northern Virginia. She has a master's degree in TSL and almost a decade of teaching experience with children and adults. Cassandra has taught overseas in Israel, Nepal, and Ecuador. She was the recipient of the 2023 Joan E.D. Kushner Teacher of the Year Award from the Virginia Association for Adult and Continuing Education. She was also a top five finalist for the 2024 Toyota Family Teacher of the Year National Award. And with that, I want to pass the digital mic to Cassandra. Thank you so much for presenting for us today.
Jose, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. And thank you to all of you for coming. This is the last session of the day, the fifth session. So we're in the home stretch. So I really appreciate you coming and being part of this session with me. So as Jose had mentioned, my presentation is digital literacy and family learning, mini projects that build skills and create connections. So my email is listed there. I will also have it at the end of this presentation, but if you have any follow-up questions or you want to connect and talk more about project ideas, feel free to email me at that address. So our agenda for today, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. We'll discuss the importance of digital literacy for adult ELLs. I will talk about the English Empowerment Center, which is the organization I work for. I will discuss motivation behind the mini projects, and we'll also talk about some barriers that we've faced along the way. And the majority of this session will be talking about mini project examples. So goals for this presentation, you will explore how to implement family-motivated mini projects and assignments into an adult English classroom using digital literacy, and you will identify the digital literacy skills necessary to complete the featured and future mini projects and assignments. So I am a lead ESL instructor for the English Empowerment Center, EEC, in Northern Virginia. I currently work in the Destination Workforce Intensive English program, but I formerly worked in the Family Learning program. I have experience in both K through 12 and adult education, and I'm the former coordinator of two English language programs. So again, fifth session of the day. I do not think we need to dwell on a definition of what is digital literacy, but just to reiterate, we're talking about those three C's of consuming, creating, and communicating. So I wanted to open up this presentation with a think and type. I wanted you to think about all of the ways you used your digital literacy skills just this morning. I know we're now at 2:49, but if you could open your chat and can you type some of those skills and how you use them and share them with the group. I will give you a moment to do that. And please, stream of consciousness, open your chat ideas. How did you use those digital skills? Excellent. Excellent. Any more ideas there? Yes. Fantastic. Yes, we are using our digital skills constantly. We are using them all the time. So let's talk about the importance in digital literacy for adult ELLs. So we know research shows digital literacy is recognized as core to adult education, with 92% of jobs requiring digital skills. But it's not just about jobs. English language and digital literacy they're also essential for supporting children at school, participating in community life, obtaining community services, and accessing further education and training. So I wanted to look a little bit at the state of Connecticut in terms of the digital skill workforce importance. You can see that Connecticut ranks 11th, with the percent of job postings including a likely digital skill being 91%. And so that's a skill that could be done manually, but could also be done digitally. And then the percent of job postings, including a definitely digital skill, is 46%. So this is a skill that could not be done without the use of digital technology, such as something like coding. And if we look at Connecticut's digital equity plan, Connecticut created a digital literacy benchmark. And this benchmark asked residents to respond to a question about digital tasks they could complete without any help. So residents could select any number of tasks from this list, and you can see some of the examples: setting up an online account, making video calls, access and using social media, comparing prices for products or services online, writing documents or using spreadsheets, or fixing a computer or phone when they're not working. So if we're looking specifically at this category, the residents with a language barrier, so these are residents who say they speak English not well or not at all, only 24% of them said they could complete at least 5 of 6 key tasks without help. So that means Connecticut residents with language barriers are less likely to meet the state's digital literacy benchmark, with 76% falling below the benchmark compared to 36% of the overall sample. I mean, we have similar digital gaps in Virginia, which we are working on consistently trying to bridge those gaps. So I think no matter what state you're in, we are asking what is the best way to incorporate foundational digital skills into an ESL classroom, and especially for students who may have very limited digital literacy. So I'm talking specifically about asylum seekers and refugees and LESLA learners. So we have both asylum seekers and refugees and LESLA learners within our classes. I wanted to share more about my organization just so that you have an idea of where my motivation came from for these projects, because the demographics of our organization definitely made an impact on this. So 72% of our learners are female. More than 2,000 dependent children have parents in EEC programs. 58% live below the poverty level, and 39% of learners had 9 years or less of education. When students come into my class, I always ask them. I think student input is so important. Student feedback is so important, right, in this learning process. I say, why are you here? I know you signed up for an English class, but what brings you in here today? What are your dreams? What are your goals? What do you want to be able to do that you aren't able to do right now? We have some learners who've just arrived. We have newcomers who've only been in the United States for a few months. Some have been here much longer. So I ask them this question. I say, what is your motivation? What do you want to be able to do? And I get 2 top answers when I ask my students that question. And I will share them with you, obviously, but I'd like to ask you. I know you work very closely with these learners. Why do your learners tell you they want to learn English? What are some of their answers? So please take a moment. Thank you so much for participating and putting your responses in chat. Please, please share. What do some of your students say? Why are they taking English class? Yes, good. Yep, great answers. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Good. Thank you for sharing. Yes, those are really, really wonderful reasons, and I have heard a lot of those responses as well. Yes, very good. Okay, so the top 2 responses, which is no surprise because a lot of you mentioned this as well. The first one is getting a job. That was their number one. That's why they're in English class, especially in the destination workforce program. But the second answer was really interesting to me. They said, helping my family. And a few of you mentioned that in many different ways. So I went back to them and I said, okay, now what does that mean? That's very broad, helping my family. How can you help your family? What do you want to be able to do? Again, what are you not able to do that you want to be able to do in the future? What are some of your goals? So, this is what they said. The adult students wanted to take part in their child's education. They wanted to understand what was happening in their child's classroom. They wanted to be able to read to their children. And they also wanted to be able to find community resources that could help their families. These same students said that they felt closed off because of the language barrier and the lack of digital literacy skills. It's also important to point out that parents are more likely to have digital skill gaps. So in the new landscape of digital literacy report, 66% of total workers in this data were parents, but they represented the 75% of workers with no digital skills and 78% of workers with limited digital skills. So I took the input from the students, the feedback from them, the in-demand digital skills that I knew we had within our state, and I decided to create authentic, family motivated mini projects that would require digital literacy skills. And I'm going to say it one more time because I know it's a lot. Authentic, family motivated mini projects that would require digital literacy skills. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit. Why mini projects? Our sessions last 8 weeks, and we usually cover 3 topics a session. And these topics are very broad, such as in the community, your health, eating well. And I wanted students to have an opportunity to try to complete a mini project within each of those 3 topics. I wanted mini projects to be more than a homework assignment that I sent them home to do and they came back and it was finished the next day. But I also wanted it to be less than a full session project, especially for the students. I have students that have never turned a laptop on before in their lives, right? So they are learning very quickly, but it's also very easy for it to be too overwhelming for them. And then they shut down. And so I felt like if we had a full session project, it would really just be too much for them. And then if they were absent, which does happen in adult education, there are absences, right? They might feel like they fall too far behind and they're not able to catch up. And so also by having multiple projects, they're able to learn new skills and then they have a product that they finish and they can be proud of. And then they can apply those new skills to the next future project. Okay. So they really felt excited about that, that they were able to use their skills and they transferred to different projects. I needed dedicated class time to teach the skills and also to give really good feedback to the students as well. We work with a number of our students are from Afghanistan, so we do have a bilingual class aide that works with me while I'm doing these mini projects to help some of those students, especially those who are not literate in their native language. A span of a project can last 2 to 3 classes or up to a week and a half, depending on how involved the project is. And I'm going to circle back to the project timeline in just a few minutes. I started these projects within the family literacy programs. And for those of you who work within these programs, they represent the required level of effort to engage families with intensity and duration to move them towards positive educational and work outcomes. And so there's a very specific intervention model that engages families to work together within family literacy programs, and that's PAC time, parent and child together time. And it's where teachers create opportunities for parents and children to spend time together learning. And I was very cognizant of that. And so when I created these mini projects, I tried to weave PAC time either throughout the project or add it on at the end of the project as an extension. The 3 mini projects I'm going to share with you today in detail are 1, connecting learners to their local libraries, 2, connecting learners to their child's school, and 3, connecting learners to their own culture with food. And I will have several more mini projects that I will be talking about at the end, but these we're going to be going into more detail about. And as I present these today, I don't want you to look at them and say, oh, well, this project would not be a good fit for my organization or the students that I work with. It's not really like that. I designed these projects to be that you could take them and adapt them to the needs of your own learners. Some are very involved. Maybe you don't have enough time to do the entire project, but you could do a part of it. And so it's really, there's a lot of adaptability when it comes to these projects. And the reason I say that is because keep in mind that these were created for a remote learning class, and it was for a level 1 class. That being said, I have done these same projects in in-person classes and also in multi-level classes. Because our destination workforce program is remote, and one of our most in-demand digital skills in Virginia is computer literacy, we do these projects on laptops. But I have had other teachers tell me, oh, we really don't have access to laptops, but most of my students have smartphones. Smartphones are fantastic. There's so many projects that you could do, mini projects that you could do just on your smartphone. Also, in terms of in person, we work mostly within schools and community centers. And so to do these projects, I often just worked closely with the director of the community center. And I said, do you have a computer lab? Do the computers work? How old are they? No. And sometimes they didn't work. Sometimes they had laptops. And I said, okay, well, we can't use it for the whole 8-week session. I understand that they belong to you. Could we maybe just use them for 2 weeks? Would that be possible? And then I just restructured the mini projects around those 2 weeks that the computers were available. Okay, one of the big questions that I often get, and I touched on it a little bit, is barriers, access to computers, and access to reliable Wi-Fi. So if you look at our learners at EEC, close to 44% reported having internet at home, close to 52% have a smartphone, and close to 25% have a computer. And so I don't have all the answers of how to overcome this barrier, but I can tell you what we've been able to do that's helped. So we were able to secure a grant to start a laptop lending program within our organization. So students who enroll in our classes, if it's remote learning, they receive a laptop for that session that is theirs. And then they have to return it at the end of the session, and a new student will get it the following session. We also were able in that same grant to get Wi-Fi hotspots. And so we have students who might still connect on their smartphone, but they have unreliable internet. So we're able to give those Wi-Fi hotspots out, and then again, they return them at the end of the session. So that just really helps to make sure that all of the students are able to get online, able to be connected, and be part of the mini projects. And I mentioned I was going to circle back to timeframes. It really depends on the structure of your class in terms of how long a project can last. So for example, in our family literacy programs, those meet twice a week, 2 hours at a time, whereas our destination workforce program is an intensive program, so it meets 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. So I had a lot more flexibility in the destination workforce program with creating and doing mini projects than I did with family literacy program. I had to be very specific about when I wanted to do it and how much time it was going to last. So mini project number 1, connecting learners to their local libraries. I can locate the nearest library in my community. I can complete an online application form for a library card, and I could obtain a library card and sign out books. So these projects I'm going to break down a little bit more in detail for you so you understand that none of these projects could I just hand them to the students and say, here you go, good luck. Every single thing had to be scaffolded as we're learning these basic foundational digital skills, and everything built on what we did the day before. And so again, one of the things that really helped in terms of project timelines, I would include a buffer day at the end of the project. So if the project lasted a week, then we'd have an extra day that any student who was absent, or maybe, as you know, some students just are taking longer to learn those skills, longer to complete the project. If they're not able to do it at home, they have that extra day that I can work with those students, or the class aide can work with them. And then the other students that are finished, I would give them an independent activity to work on. So, this is one of my favorite mini projects that I teach, and I always tell my staff, my bosses, that I'm not going to teach it every session, but I do because it's just so wonderful. I'm amazed when I start talking to my students about the library. Um, so depending on where they came from, some of them don't really understand all of the resources that are available at the library. They don't understand that it's free, that there's so many books they can take out. And then besides just reading, right, there's so many other resources. We had a field trip to the library this past summer with one of my classes, and that library actually had passport services at the library. And one student was so excited because her son was born in the United States. She wanted to get him a passport. And so she was just able to come to our library to get the forms and also to make an appointment. So I'm going to break every rule that we have about putting too many words on a slide, but I really want you to see all of the digital skills that were necessary to do this project. So we started with navigation websites, to find the closest library, navigating a library's website, understanding how to use a keyboard, something as basic as that, using drop-down menus, scrolling up and down on a web page, filling out an application form, logging in and out of email, opening an email, and then using the online card catalog to search for books. So any opportunity for me to get the students on Google Maps, I love it, especially for our newcomers who don't really feel comfortable with the neighborhood around them. Students needed to find the library that was closest to them, and this is just outside of DC in Northern Virginia. And once they found that library, then they had to figure out, okay, so how do I drive there? How do I walk there? What happens if I have to take the bus? How would I take the bus there? And there were connections that way as well because some of my students realized, oh, that's bus 50. That's the same bus that I have to take to pick up my child from school. Oh, we could probably stop at the library on the way home from school. A lot of connections made that way. We also started talking about library networks. So they don't necessarily have to go to their home library. If they are across town and visiting a friend, but there's a library there in the same network, they can use it as well. When they became comfortable with that, finding their home library showed them what a real library card application required. Some of the students said anytime they receive forms, they just give it to somebody else, somebody who speaks better English than them or can read better than them. And I wanted them to feel like they could do this all by themselves. So we looked over what exactly was required for a library card application. In our destination workforce program, we have students practicing filling out forms all of the time. And so we do this through a scaffolded Google Forms folder. So we'll start with form number 1 with basic information that the students practice filling out online. Then we move to number 2, including phone number and birth date. And 3, spouse's name and initials. And then we also have other specific forms related to jobs, to employment, filling out a driver's license application, or even this past week, we were filling out a medical history form. So for this library card application, we only needed form number 2. So we had students, I had them fill it out, submit it. We'd look at the errors. The students would fill it out again, practice it, submit it until they got it and they were comfortable with doing it. And from there, then we moved to the online library card form. So the only additional information we needed to fill out was the PIN number, which we spoke with them about, and then they had to choose the library from the drop-down menu. So once that was submitted, we could have stopped there and I could have just said, if you want to get your library cards, you can. But I really wanted them to be able to be part and follow through in that process of going in, talking to the librarian, getting their library card. And it's funny because you always have one student, the brave student, who goes in, gets her library card, and then comes back and tells the rest of the class how easy it was and how it only took 5 minutes. And in the Destination Workforce program, we're working on these mini projects in the last hour of the class. And so the rest of the class is related to that topic. So in other time, we were doing dialogues, we were talking about library vocabulary, where things are in a library. So then they all come in with their library cards. So these are just pictures of a few of the students. I've done this several times now. And they are always really excited to show that they have a library card. Um, I ask students to take photos all the time, and I do that one to prove to me that they've completed the assignment. Two, it's a photo they have for themselves, a memory that they can look on, and just be very proud about and share with others. And then also that we're able to share it with each other as a class and the accomplishments we've had. And the family extension of this project was to ask the students to go back to the library then and to read and sign out books with their children. So this has been extremely successful. 100% of the students that have done this mini project have obtained a library card and reported going to the library with their children. Mini project number 2, connecting learners to their child's school. So I can navigate a school's website. I can follow social media for my child's school. I can change the language on a school's webpage to my native language. This is the least visually appealing for me to show you, but it has been so, so important for my students. So when we start this project, we look at school district websites. And across the United States, school districts have different styles, but there are a lot of similarities to websites. And so I have them look at their local public school website, and I said, how do you react when you look at this? How do you feel? Do you understand what's going on? Please tell me more. And so, some of them say, oh, I love the visuals, but I'm very confused. I don't necessarily know where to look, where to click, where to find information. Okay. And so we spend a lot of time just breaking down how to navigate a website, how to find the menu bar, what information is included in the menu bar, clicking the home button to go back to the home page, the social media buttons that are on a web page. And the first thing I just want to point out, so the students saw that there was English on the website and they said, well, of course, the website's in English. They didn't realize if they clicked on it, there was a whole drop-down menu with so many different languages. So they'd be able to click on that and change it to their native language if they were literate in that language. And that would be able to help them better understand what was posted on the school website. These were the digital skills in this project: navigating an internet browser, identifying specific search terms, using search specific terms for internet searches, using browser tools, scrolling up and down, working with tabs in Windows. A lot of them, they would open a bunch of windows and they'd share their screen and they would be 25 open windows when we could easily have everything put into tabs and be more organized. Downloading documents from a trusted website, identifying social media, how to follow on social media, and how to find translation information. So this was an important element for them. They wanted to be able to be more involved in parent-teacher conferences and to ask questions of the child's teacher and be more involved with the homework. So we showed them that even if you are not comfortable by yourself speaking English within a parent-teacher conference, or if you have questions, there are interpreters available. And so we went through, what is the phone number you need to call? What is your code number for your language? And then which school are you wanting to access? When it comes to social media, I would say the majority of the students coming in have some form of social media. They have an idea of what it is, even if it's just WhatsApp, which I will say is something that we use constantly for our class. We have a class WhatsApp going, and then I also have private WhatsApps with students, depending on if they're asking a question for homework or they need to turn something in. So it was just a great opportunity to kind of review some of the top social media platforms. And then we asked them to join or follow one of them relating to their school district. So it's how social media could be used in a positive way. And they were very specific. Some of them had a number of children and they just wanted to follow the district website because they felt like it was too much to follow the individual schools. But others, really wanted to follow each school or they wanted to follow a particular school based on the needs of their child. And the family extension of this project was that they needed to download the academic calendar from the website and they had to discuss upcoming events at school with their children and then put key dates on the calendar together. So they could either have a calendar at home that they wrote the dates down, or it was a great opportunity for the students to use the calendar app on their phone to be able to do that. The outcomes of this were very interesting. Students with children in school reported increased time working with their children on schoolwork. It just really gave them a lot of confidence. They were able to use the school's website and access important information. And they were also able to join parent-teacher conferences. And when I talk about that confidence, they were also just very confident and really willing to problem solve. There are sometimes issues that are going on. I had a student who her daughter was in kindergarten, and for some reason the bus wasn't picking her up. And instead of saying, oh well, I'm not sure what to do, she said, okay, so I'm gonna go online. I'm gonna find the email for the transportation contact. I'm gonna email the transportation contact. I'm gonna write up a draft of the email. Can you look at it, make sure it's okay? And she was able to solve that problem. So it was really, really good outcome for this mini project. Mini project number three, connecting learners to their own culture with food. So I can identify my favorite recipe. I can type and create my favorite recipe in Google Docs. I can format text and images to create the recipe. So this project is probably one of the more involved projects because we are working in Google Docs. So I have shared the digital skills that were necessary to complete two of these mini projects. What I'm going to ask you now is what digital skills do you think are necessary to complete a mini project like this? So I'm going to ask you to open chat again and list some ideas in chat. I'm going to show you a picture of the recipe. And again, this was completed in Google Docs. So please take a minute to put your ideas in chat. Very nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's a lot of digital skills. Yes. Mm-hmm. Good. Absolutely. You have hit some of the major digital skills that are necessary. Absolutely. So there are even more that I didn't even include on this list, but these were most important. They needed to know how to sign in and out of a Google account, okay, and navigate to Google Docs. They need to create Google Doc, editing and formatting text, identifying the menu bar, toolbar, document title, share button, inserting images into a document. I saw a few people mention this, cutting, copying, and pasting. We work a lot on cutting, copying, and pasting. And of course, it's one of those things, once you get it, you get it. But for some students, it takes them a little bit longer. Some of them really struggle with highlighting the correct information that they want to cut or copy, and then holding down that control button when you're pressing C. Typing and understanding keyboard keys. Yes, the difference between bullet points and automatic numbering and being able to use both. Navigating food recipe websites. Undoing a previous action. Mistakes are inevitable. I really tell students, you're going to make mistakes in this process. You are learning, but we also need to know how to undo those mistakes. So Control Z, very important. Downloading a digital file from a website, using spelling and grammar check, and then saving a digital file to the computer. So for this project, the students were required to include four elements. They had to include a title, a photo, the ingredients which needed to be listed in bullet points or bulleted list, and then instructions, which needed to be full sentences and then numbered. They were able to find a recipe that they loved online that was connected to their culture, or they could have used their own family recipe for this project. Now, if they took it from an online source, they had to at the bottom include the website where that was pulled from. But this was a wonderful example of an opportunity for packed time. I had a student from Afghanistan who she had a family recipe she really wanted to share, but she felt like her writing was a little bit weak. And she sat with her son and she dictated the recipe to him. I think he was in fifth grade. And they talked about what the English words would be together. He wrote down the recipe for her as she talked to him about it. And then she brought her notebook, to class ready to type out her recipe. It was just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for her to spend that time with her son and to be able to share something that's so important to her as well. And so in terms of the template, I have a lot of people ask me, what template do you use for the students? It is very simple. It looks like this. I create it in the Google Doc and then just copy and paste it into their Google Doc once they create it. And the only thing that you have to do is change the table border width lines to 0, and then it disappears. And so this is exactly what it looks like when those lines are deleted. And this is a funny story. This student, she actually worked at a restaurant, and so this is her salad. She made the salad, took a photo of it, making sure to write down all the ingredients and the steps. And I also love, in terms of, I said many of these projects were for level 1, but the family learning program within our organization has 3 levels. It's level 1, 2, and 3, taught all together. And so this is a perfect project where you can have level 1 students completing it, and then you can have level 3 students going all out, including special sauces and add-ons and things like that to create a wonderful recipe. And so what I do is at the end of the session, we have actually done it. We just finished last week, the 3rd recipe project. I compile them at the end of the session, and then we turn it into a class cookbook. And so then students need to they need to brainstorm together and vote on a title for their class cookbook. So in the FLP program came up with Made with Love. And the last year's Destination Workforce class, I think their title was Yummy. And we just finished ours last week. It was Dream Foods Cookbook. So the students really love being able to have that. I send it to them as a PDF at the end of the session, and they're able to hold on to it. The family extension, part of this was, as I mentioned before, you could work with your child to create the recipe. Or if you didn't do that, I asked that they cook the recipe with their children afterwards. So this photo is of end of the year party with one of the classes. Because we met at the end of the session in person, a lot of them chose to cook the food that they had made the recipe for this project and bring it in to share with everyone. The other thing I want to mention too is about how transferable these skills are. So in terms of today they're creating a recipe, but tomorrow they're creating a resume, right? Those are skills that are very, very transferable. And so, and I explained that to them. I said, okay, look, now we made a recipe, and now this session we're doing something else using those same skills. So it makes them understand that it's not just for a specific project, but it's for so many other things that they're able to do. And again, this is the other really popular mini project with 100% of the students completing the recipe assignment. I've even had students who were absent multiple times and they said, nope, I need to complete this project. I'm going to work on it at home. I'm going to share it with you from home. Can you look at it? Give me feedback. They're very committed to finishing this project. Okay, so those are 3 of the most popular mini projects that I have done. I do want to share a few mini projects with you, additional ones. So this is the Neighborhood Walk project. This is also a Google Docs mini project, but this is not, I would never do 2 Google Doc mini projects within the same session. So these were different sessions. And This idea really came from a lot of the newcomers. I had a student who said she was really not comfortable leaving her house. She really didn't know what was around her, and she really didn't feel comfortable. And so we said, why don't we do a neighborhood walk project? You know, you take your children after school or on the weekend. Walk around the neighborhood, take photos of places around you, use your Google Maps to walk around, take those photos, and then create a list of those places in your neighborhood. So this is connecting students to their own neighborhoods. And then again, similar digital skills, inserting images into tables, formatting. And some of these projects, I really want the students to play with the new skills that they have. And so I allowed them to change the font, change the colors. But then other projects like the recipe project, I gave them very specific formatting and sizing. Some of the students also, I just want to mention, some of the students love being in the photos, like a scavenger hunt, and then others just prefer to take the photos of the places in their neighborhood. So a lot of individuality in there. And then another project idea, discovering local parks and playgrounds. A lot of my students, when we talk about what did you do on the weekend, what are you doing for a holiday where there's no school? If the weather's warm, they're going to the park. They're going to the playground. But some of them have mentioned, you know, I go to the same playground all the time. I'm not really sure. There are other playgrounds in my area. Any state parks that are around me. So this was a project idea with them using their, again, Google Maps, looking up to see what local parks and playgrounds were in their area, going to them, taking photos of them, but also listing the amenities of what's available there. Could they do barbecue there? Are there bathrooms there? And it's something they could work on together as a group. Another project idea, which we do a lot, is practicing emailing the school. Many different ways you could go with this. Requesting a parent-teacher conference, reporting a school absence, asking about a change in transportation for their child. Um, I work with a template with them and their email where they complete the information, and then I show them, they save it in drafts, and then they can copy and paste it into a new email, and then fitting whatever purpose they have for emailing the school. Oh, and then finally, QR codes. QR codes are used for everything, right? So this is my children are in elementary school. They use QR codes for everything: attendance, transportation change, early dismissal, breakfast, lunch menu, and also a lot of volunteer opportunities within schools. They will use QR codes as well. Sign Up Genius. And so this was another project idea where you probably could create as a teacher a QR code that links to a form that students would practice filling out for a specific purpose. I also want to mention if you want to learn more about these projects that I've created or more the background about them and the creation of them, I did publish an article with Xavier Munoz in the COEB Journal for the Family Literacy Edition. So that was fall 2024. And the title of our article was Family Motivated Projects to Empower Adult Learners in the Digital Age. And I want to touch on that because within that article, what we also did is we created tables that listed the digital skills that we used. So we linked them both to North Star and then also Bridges. And I do believe that North Star and Bridges might have been discussed earlier in the day, but I do get that question a lot in terms of where do I pull this list of digital skills from? Why do I choose them? And so you will find more details if you read that article. Okay, so as I'm getting to the end of my presentation, I do think we learn best from sharing ideas with each other. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, do you have an idea for a future family motivated digital literacy project? Or have you completed one before? Because I would love for you to be able to share with us in chat what you've done. And again, you're also welcome to send me an email if you want to share that as well after. Before we go to Q&A, I just want to say that by using family motivated mini projects and assignments, we can incorporate foundational digital literacy skills into the adult ESL classroom. And we can also meet the motivational needs of the students in our classroom by better connecting learners to their families and community. So, moving on to Q&A, and I would absolutely love again for you to share if you have any mini project ideas or things that you have done. How to create a parent portal account. I love that. And navigating through school websites. Excellent. Very nice. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Again, if you have any questions, I know Jose. Oh, a digital photo book. I love that idea. A photo book of what? Families? What kind of topic? Plan a field trip. Fantastic. Recipes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Jose, did you see any other questions in the chat from earlier at all?
I didn't. It was a
Okay.
question about the slides, but we will be sending those out after the session. Or
Okay.
most likely tomorrow. I don't think I'll get them ready for you today. Most likely be tomorrow morning.
Okay. Wonderful. So that was a great question. The level of our students. So, in the destination workforce intensive program, they're level one. So they're low beginner, high beginner students. But then in the FLP classes, it was level one, two, and three. And as you can imagine, I mean, that's very difficult when you have that many levels in one class. These mini projects were really wonderful for that because you could be asking students to complete the same project, but expecting more from the higher level students. Thank you. A slideshow about their country, to do a hero of their country. Oh, I love that too. These are such really great ideas. Thank you for all of you who are putting some ideas in the chat. I'm going to save these for sure. And as I mentioned, my email address is there and also the link to the English Empowerment Center. Again, we're in Northern Virginia. And also my LinkedIn profile if you wanted to connect on LinkedIn as well. Mm, Kids family newsletter. Oh, nice. So before COVID, I know COVID made it so difficult with food related things, right? Of being able to do that. I think that's why we were so excited to have that in-person end of the year celebration. It was post COVID. We were finally able to get together and they were able to make the food and bring the food to celebrate. Good. Social media, yes. Okay. Well, I'm here to hang out if you have any other questions, but I do want to say thank you so much for being with me this afternoon and being part of it. Um, yes, that is actually a really good point, Martha. And I didn't mention that. So our students, some of them do not sign media release forms and they don't want to take a photo. And so I am very sensitive to that fact and we talk about it. And I will say more often than not, for when we're doing projects and we say we're just sharing them within our class, the students are okay with that photo. And they're trusting me, right, as the educator to say that these photos are not going to go outside of our classroom. But then also I try and find creative ways if they don't want to take photos of ways that could still be involved to show what they're doing. So some of the students will take photos, but they won't necessarily be in the photos, but we get the idea of what they're doing. Yes. Everyone loves photos of food. I will say too, though, with that recipe project, although they love it, it actually takes more time when they are taking a recipe from a recipe website because any of you who've been on a recipe website, you realize so much of background is included in the recipe, and you just want to get to the recipe. So teaching them how to click the button "Jump to Recipe" is very, very important for them to speed up the process. The only other thing I wanted to mention, going back to the library project, is that it's something that even if my students are in my class again for a future session and they already have a library card, there's so many additional library related activities that or mini projects that you can do with them so they still feel like they're involved in this original project. And we've just found so much success with our learners being connected to their libraries. And also too, the local library that my students were going to, they had a lot of children's books in different languages, and that blew my students' minds. They said, "Oh my gosh, oh, they have Dari books here, so I can not only be taking out English books and reading English books to my kids, but I can help them continue to learn Dari as well, or their own language, their home language as well." So it was really, really positive. Let me see if there are any other questions. That's a great resource. That's a great resource, Jose. Yes. A few of my students did that. They asked about getting library cards for their kids. And I said, "Well, you know the process now. We did it together. Now it's your turn. You can do it with your children." So they were really excited for that. We were also talking about in terms of the school mini project. I don't know with weather in Connecticut, but here in Virginia, if it snows 1 inch, the students are off for a week. So I know Connecticut handles snow a lot better. I grew up in Pennsylvania, but and so they had to check. I had them check each morning. I said, okay, so this is where we find this information about school cancellations because of snow, delays. Where do we find that? Sign up for a newsletter, sign up for those texts that you can receive that information right away. Thank you. Well, thank you so much again for all of your comments, all of your feedback. I really appreciate it. I love being able to share what we've been able to do at the English Empowerment Center and what our students have been able to accomplish. And hopefully this presentation was able to give you some good ideas that you can take back and adapt and use for your classrooms.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. This is excellent. We got a little bit extra from our previous session that we had able to share. So we have so much that we could get into. There's a lot of great comments coming here. Um, and with that too, you guys did it. We are at the end of Digital Learning Day. Those that I stuck by the first session to the last session, we all stick together. If you happen to miss any of the sessions, that's okay. We will have the recording available so you could rewatch. If you want to watch any section of something you want to just do a double take and make notes, we're also going to have the slides available. We'll send all that out via email. And with that said, thank you very much for joining today and learning together with Digital ATN and ATN.